Sam's
Sam's
on there,
there.
Jess is on there, yep, they're both
Okay.
there.
Good. Thank you. Okay, so those guys are here. And then anything that procedurally, let me know. I have to do
Yep.
roll call, so.
Yeah, you have to do roll call.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the January 12th, 2022 regular meeting of the Conservation Commission. We have two Conservation Commissioners that are attending virtually, Samantha and Jessica. So we'll be doing roll call votes for everything. And other than that, the first order of business is election of officers for the chair and vice chair. Anybody want to make a nomination? Allison?
I would like to nominate Barbara McMillian, you, the chair, and Samantha Collins as the vice chair.
Thank you very much. And, yes.
I'd like to nominate Ted as chair. Do I have to do a vice chair as well?
Well, I think they have to deal with the first action first, and then
Uh,
the next, and then,
yeah, I'm not familiar with the voting process.
so I think it's just like a regular agenda item, so when a member makes a motion, that motion has to be dealt with, so the nomination is a motion from Allison.
And we just need a second on that nomination.
I'll second, if I can.
There's Samantha in a second.
For the chair and vice chair, it's okay?
For the entire motion, Samantha?
Or just the,
If I'm allowed to,
Yeah, it was made as one motion, so I
Okay.
think so.
okay, then yes, second the entire motion.
okay, great, thank you. Discussions?
I think you've been doing a great job, and I just would like you to continue, both of you.
Yeah, I think, I'd like to say that Samantha's been doing a great job. So, thank you. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote then, if there's no more discussion.
Can I say one thing, Barbara?
Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate what Allison said, but also I think you do a great job keeping the meetings on track and succinct, while also getting everyone's opinions and feedback heard.
Thank you, Samantha. And you're an awesome backup too on the meetings you've done. So it's been really helpful to know that and getting your feedback. Okay, so we will do a vote and we'll do a roll call vote. So I'll just do it from here. Abigail?
So I'm a little confused because, so Henry is going to nominate Ted for
Yeah.
chair and whatever, potentially. So wouldn't one want to know who is interested in becoming chair before you vote on one or the other? Does that, and, I mean, he happened to say it, but otherwise we might not have known? Is that, I mean, is this,
So it would go,
it
I-
can,
You know, I'm just,
I just,
my understanding is the rules, Robert's Rules of Order just call for you dealing with a motion on the floor. So I guess the motion, there could have been discussion, but it started with a motion. So that motion is what we're dealing with right now.
okay, all right.
we want to go
Interesting.
back to discussion.
There could be more discussion.
Yeah,
There was a
more
second.
discussion if you want.
There was a second, so it's time for discussion. That's, it's appropriate time.
Yeah, before we
Yeah,
go to-
I'll discuss a little bit, because, I've been in local government for a long, long time, and I think Barbara has done a fine job this past year. I just think I have a little more, I would like to take the time and contribute more time to the commission, and I think I can do that more fully as the chair in discussions with others, or a property owner, or things of that nature. I think it's just one more tool in the toolbox that I'd like to use, and it's not dissatisfaction. The other thing I could point out is that, I pointed out last June that we weren't in compliance with state law. We have to do an annual report, and I think in July, I provided an annual report from the city of South Portland, what they had done, as an example. So I think that I think there's more things that we can do and can accomplish, and I'm willing to put my time into it. And it's not, it shouldn't be viewed as a negative outlook in any way, Barbara. I just want you to know that, you know.
Thank you, Ted. So, anybody else want to?
I just thought it was a regular vote, like whoever wanted to be nominated would do that. I know Ted expressed interest, so that's why I nominated. It wasn't, like I said, there's no negative comment on anything, but I thought if someone wanted to run, they should be given the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I want to make sure that we, anybody else want to comment at all on?
Well, do you keep wanting to keep being chair if you know that somebody else is interested? So I guess I'm curious about that.
Yes, yeah.
Would
Yeah,
you like to remain chair, or or were you just sort of staying chair because no one else expressed interest?
No, I definitely wanted to remain chair. I committed originally that I would do it for a couple of years. And then, so I would do it through the next year would be just over 2 years if I did it for another
Yeah,
year.
okay.
So, that's what I had committed to in the beginning when I did it, so.
Sorry, I'm the newbie, so I'm trying to.
No, it's a good question.
What's
Yeah,
going
That's
on?
a really good
I'm
question.
right behind her, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm thinking Robert's rules, if we follow through with this and see what the vote comes out, then you kind of know what the outcome would be if you were nominated. Since everybody now knows that you're interested, does that,
Sure,
That seems-
that's fine, I'm fine.
okay. Yeah, all right,
Interesting. Okay.
we'll go ahead with the vote, see what the outcome of that is, and with the knowledge that people know that you're interested in doing it too. If that's okay with everybody. Okay, so I'm going to do a roll call vote, and we'll start with Abigail.
Oh, God.
I can start with somebody. I'll start down here.
That's okay. Okay, so if I would like to support Ted and not you, sorry, then I would vote no.
Correct.
Correct? Okay, I will vote no then.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Allison is yes. Chair votes yes. Ted, I'm sorry.
No.
Votes
No.
no. And, okay, and we've got another,
Samantha
and Samantha votes,
I vote yes.
and Jess?
I vote yes.
Okay.
So that's, the motion passes? Okay. 4-3?
Okay.
4-3.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ted, for putting yourself up there. It's good to know. Thanks, you guys. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for December 8th, 2021. Does anybody want to make a motion? And I know, Allison, you've already given your comments, your
Yes.
changes, and I did too. Yeah,
I just have one on page 9. No, yeah, find it again. The third paragraph, it says, Mr. Miller questioned what tax, who the tax basin, 3 and 4. This is tax. Those are the, tax basin.
Catch basin.
Yeah.
Catch basin.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, got it.
And that's all I have.
that's all you have? Anybody else? No? Okay. We don't have a motion yet. Anybody motion to approve? And, oh, you guys, Jess and, this is going to be tough because I can't see them.
Can't see them? Here, I'll try to make them.
Kind of
I'm
see
gonna abstain because I wasn't at the last meeting, Barbara.
Okay, thank you. And Jess, you're all set?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Motion is to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. The previous Conservation Commission meeting on December 8th, 2021,
Seconded?
with the changes made by everybody else.
Okay, thank you. Seconded?
I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
Yep, Ted and Abigail. Okay, all those in favor, quick roll call. Abigail,
Yes.
sorry.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Okay, one abstention.
Approve.
Yes.
Okay,
Approve.
approve.
Yeah.
Ted's good. Jessica's good. Good? Yes.
Yes. Good.
And Samantha's abstaining. And the chair votes yes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the State Wetland Bureau application, standard dredge and fill for 231, 249, and 273 Corporate Drive from the Pease Development Authority. Anybody here to speak to that?
Good afternoon, members of the commission. I'm Dave DeFosis from Public Works. I'm here today with Phil McDonald. He works for Underwood Engineers. Underwood Engineers was contracted by the city a number of years ago at this point. Probably 4 years ago, we've been working on this project to reconstruct Corporate Drive. We've been doing quite a bit of investigation on why Corporate Drive, let's start from the beginning. The entire drainage system of Corporate Drive is flooded. So Underwood was hired to fix the drainage problems in Corporate Drive. We did a bunch of investigations as much as we could, and we came to the conclusion that the reason why but certainly most of the drainage system on Corporate Drive is flooded because the outfalls are choked with sediment. So as you know, the Pease Air Force Base was built in the mid-50s by the Air Force. And as far as we can tell, the drainage systems were never maintained by the Air Force. So from after years and years of plowing, dropping sand and salt into the roads, and then from all the construction that happened over the last 20 years, building the Pease Development Authority, all the sediment has found its way in this neighborhood, has found its way into these 4 areas. And some of these culverts are so choked up that literally where the ground is now is at almost where the top of the drain pipes are. So the entire drainage system is surcharged. To make matters worse, because this was all farmland and fairly flat, the original engineers of the trade port, when it was the Air Force Base, built in under drains under the roads so that the soil would get drained and the roads would be able to support heavy loads. So those under drains are also completely choked with water. So what's happening is all the water that falls basically is going into the under drain system and weakening the roadbed, which is why Corporate Drive looks the way it does. So moving forward, we've met with the wetlands people over at Pease. We've identified these 4 spots that desperately need to be dredged back to original condition so that the drainage systems can function properly out in Corporate Drive. The first 2 areas are fairly straightforward. They act as culverts. They're actually tied to the road drainage system as well, but they're mostly culvert systems. The areas to the right of the sheet that you're looking at, which are 3 and 4, are the areas that basically drain the lower part of Corporate Drive. There are 2 outfalls in that vicinity. We're not quite sure at this point because everything's so full of water, we can't really tell whether we need both outfalls or not. We think maybe the outfall that's labeled number 3 was constructed by the Air Force because number 4 just ceased to work. But we're here permitting the entire mess so that we can get these outfalls dredged. After we get the outfalls dredged, that'll be part 1 of a construction contract. And then we can go through and figure out where the problems are, if there are any other problems in the drainage system, so we can actually fix Corporate Drive. So funds have been identified for this. We're trying to move forward and expeditiously. We'd like to do a construction contract this summer to dredge the outfalls. So that's basically the overhead view of this. Like I said, I have Phil McDonald here from Underwood, and if you have specific questions about each particular area, he can go through them.
Thanks, Dave. Questions from the commissioners? Allison?
Yeah, I have a question because I'm very confused about the numbering in this. You have outlet area 1, 2, 3A, and 3B, and then other places you have labeled 3B as outlet 4, and there are other places where you can actually find a 5 on the documents, so it just makes it very confusing. If you could delineate where each of these things is, it would be
Sure.
appreciated.
Yep. Just go over here to the screen.
Can you grab the microphone, Dave, please? Thank you. The folks at home.
Old-fashioned guy. Yep. So area 1 is here, basically across the street from Oak Ave. Number 2 is here. It's directly adjacent to Ashland Road, which is the road that goes over and crosses the highway. And then area 3 goes behind this modern corporate building, comes out here, and then sheet 4 is actually outfall 3A. And that is the one that kind of comes out here at the end of, it's the same building, same lot, it's just their parking field. So it comes out there.
Okay.
And would get outfalled behind their detention pond.
5.1 and 5.2 were, it looked like that was with a culvert on the other side of Harvey Lake. You've got stuff about that in the documentation, but there are no drawings about any work being done. Is there no work being done
There is no work being done at this time, no.
Okay.
The areas in question are the 4 that I just identified.
Sorry, was that all right that I?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That was my question. I was going to say that, under the wetland delineation, they have evaluation area 5.1 and 5.2, and they didn't show up anywhere else in the document.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Other questions?
Henry?
What method will this taken before sediment doesn't hit release downstream?
How is it going to not happen again?
Yeah, and during the construction as well. To make sure sediment doesn't continue downstream.
So I should have identified that. So as part of the design that Underwood's working on, we have to ask ourselves, how do we avoid this from happening again? So those of you who aren't engineers, when water stops moving at 2.5 feet per second, that's when sediment starts dropping out of suspension. So that's when it happens, and because this whole area around Corporate Drive is very flat, none of it is at 2.5%, so it's always going to drop out of suspension, so we're always going to have this problem. So, as part of the new design work that Underwood will do, once we get the dredging done, we are going to be installing either sediment bays at the head of the swale, of size enough in proximity to where we can get to them with municipal vehicular equipment to dig them out.
Yeah.
In other areas where that's not possible, we're actually putting in concrete sediment tanks and that sort of thing, deep sump catch basins to try to capture the sediment and clean it out regularly before this happens again. So that's very, very good question, Henry. So one of the problems that with these swales is that a lot of them are basically inaccessible to any of the equipment that we have. We have to hire contractors to go in there with track equipment. So because they're just in, a couple of them are, for colloquial speech, I mean, they're in jungle. You can't even get out there without a machete. So you can only really walk out there this time of year in January because the ground's frozen. So we're going to try to dredge that and create sediment bays for the outfalls. And we're going to make sure that when we do that, we build unloading areas so we can actually get in there with equipment every so often and maintain the areas without having to go all the way back out into the woods again. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have a second part to that, Henry, or you just?
Well, during the construction, what's going to be done, because that there will be excavating soil.
How much is
what's
coming out?
being done to test during the construction as well? Like,
Some of the areas on the sides of the swales will get disturbed,
Yeah.
and those are shown on the maps.
Yeah.
Because we need to be able to dig, as you know, you were in the business.
Yeah.
So as you dig, you gotta truck the material out.
Yeah.
So when we do these, and a couple of these long swales, we're actually gonna create areas so we can truck in and out, and then restore on the way out.
There was one, and I have one from, okay. I'm going to just do Samantha, just because.
Yeah, talking about these loading and access roads, areas, whatever, driveways you want to call them, what is that going to be made of? How wide are they going to be generally? I know they'll probably all be a little different based on what you're trying to access, but could you just give us a little synopsis about those?
Regularly, naturally vegetated after we're done. We'll just probably put some stone in so the vehicles don't sink, and then restore that with a little bit of loam so that we can go back out there if we ever need to without sinking in. And those areas will need to get, these swales will need to get mowed regularly. So one of the things that you need to do with these vegetated swales so that you don't make the situation even worse is you don't want to let the woody growth grow up. So, every 1 or 2 years, we should go out there and actually mow the swales down and keep the vegetation mostly grassy.
I have a follow-up to that. So you said you wanted to dredge this summer. Again, with the whole, truck sinking in and all that sort of thing, does it make more sense to do it as it starts to get colder and the ground starts to freeze? I would assume these areas would still be able to be dredged with the machinery.
Yeah, so that kind of does make sense back when we used to have winters. But nowadays, the target necessarily, we probably could do that this week if we were ready, but I'm not sure that we can pin down. Last year, the ground didn't really even freeze out there. So.
At the very least, can you wait for a drier,
Well, yeah, we would absolutely
period?
do that. We would definitely do it in like August, so it's the driest part of the year.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go out
Okay.
there in June. We'd go out there in August.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, Allison.
So something else that I find a little confusing is you're standing there saying that the area floods, but it's not within a floodplain according to FEMA. Now, I don't know how.
Oh, I didn't say it flooded, I'm sorry, if you misunderstood me.
It doesn't flood?
No, what's flooded is the entire drainage system under the road.
Okay.
The outfall areas don't necessarily flood. They're not floodplain, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and the other thing is that you're not draining a groundwater, and yet in your sort of brief project description, you talk about you're draining the groundwater.
We are draining groundwater. Yes.
Okay, well-
We have to drain the groundwater out from under the road, that's the problem.
Okay, but yet it says in the Appendix A that the proposed project should have no impact on drinking water or groundwater aquifers.
Or groundwater what?
Aquifers.
That should be true, yes.
So.
We're
if you're-
draining the culverts that are built under the roads, which are only 4 feet down.
So these are being built with sea level rise in mind, and they're not going to
Sea
need
level
any
effect
sort of
won't affect us.
alteration.
No.
Because what happens is the seawater comes in underneath the aquifers and raises them, so this isn't going to have any effect.
Yeah, no, we're up at, I think, 60 or 70 feet of elevation here.
All right, Abigail?
I've got a few questions, and I'm not sure who they should be directed to, but
Okay.
this one probably. The swale, you said you're going to keep that mowed, the swales for each of these?
Yeah, we're gonna-
How big an area is that for, like, proportionately, unless you want to go through each one or whatever? but-
In general, they're 100 feet long and maybe as wide as from me to you.
So are they kind of like the dredging, the
No, we have
dimensions you have
a
for the
tractor
dredge?
that has a mowing arm on it.
Yeah.
We don't actually go back into the swale. We wouldn't do that.
No,
From
but
up top.
the dimension for the dredging channel, is that kind of where you'd be also mowing?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And the, a lot of the depth on these were like 1.5 feet, but on, for area number 2, it didn't seem to have a depth. Is it also 1.5 feet, the depth, or is it?
It's
I
variable.
couldn't figure out.
I mean, as I tried to point out, these areas are very, very, very flat.
Yeah.
So we really just need to restore the original grade,
Yep, okay,
and some of them are, it's variable, right? So right by the outfall is where most of the sand drops out. So in those spots, it might be this much material. As you get closer to the end, you're getting closer and closer to zero.
right, okay, I figured, but it's not it's not much that's being taken. It's not going too far down below grade.
No, it's really, we really need to just go in there and remove the salt and sand from all those years.
Yep.
That's really what we're doing.
Bill, can you just introduce yourself for the record?
Phil McDonald, Lindenwood Engineers. The Area 2 that you're talking about is a long, kind of a man-made channel that, adjacent to Ashland Road. It was made by the Army Corps, as Dave pointed out. It's long and it's all wooded in. It hasn't been maintained in years. So this whole thing, all this work is about maintenance, really. That hasn't been done for a number of years. So that particular channel is probably, it's maybe 4 feet high. You know, the intent is to work on the bottom of it. We're not going to be, there's not going to be any work on, more or less grading on the sides of it. It's just kind of, the work is on the bottom 1.5 foot,
Okay,
1.5
yeah, I was just curious, because the other had a very, it was easy, they had a depth, of
Yeah, 'cause
1.5.
they
And this
changed a
didn't
little
have it, so I was trying
A
to
little
like,
bit valid, but the work is really just on the bottom,
yeah,
where
okay,
the sediments are deposited.
okay. Yeah, just going for a gist, I didn't, but, so I have sort of two general questions. After this work is done, what is it going to look like? And in time, what will you said you're going to mow that, but, I mean, I take the bike path over to Pease and I bike around there, and I was checking it out on Monday, and there were deer prints that were going over to the number 4, where somebody is, a man-made hole in the wetland area though, and Lake, Harvey Lake. They were going over, and you could tell that that was a drinking hole. And then, I'm driving out, and the wild turkeys, I had to stop for a flock of wild turkeys. So I'm just kind of, I know a lot of the documentation is like, oh, this was all, man-made and whatever, but it's been 60 years, and nature has a way of, kind of cleansing things. And the environmental impact also talked about these areas as being really important for sediment and wildlife, and this, it's a whole list of what they benefit. So what is the project how is it going to affect those areas, like Lake Harvey and the other areas? And so when I say what will it look like, it's sort of like, what does it look like ecologically, but also physically and whatever? Does that?
Yeah, no, I get it. In general, wildlife should function exactly the way it does. The stuff that we're doing is not going to impact anything that I can think of. Ecologically, the stormwater that's discharging out of the road system is going to get treated, at least with sediment removal and possibly other methods of treatment, which we haven't even got to the design yet.
Yeah.
So the stormwater that's leaving the road will be cleaner. And the swale paths are literally, like I said, they're just going to be, minimal areas just so
Yeah.
that the drainage can be maintained. I mean, there's, the millions and millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure there that needs to be fixed.
Yep.
It's not the sort of thing that we can just let go and leave it the way it is.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
just not feasible to do that, really.
Good question.
All right, that's it. Sorry. I have a few, as you can see.
No, it's good. Other questions? No?
I don't see anything from you guys.
The other ones? So I did have a few questions on, well, I thought those were good questions, because, in the past, we've seen maintenance be done, I think it was on Oak Ave or Rye Street, I don't know if you remember. But, so and it just looked like somebody came in with huge equipment and totally, dug up everything.
Yeah,
And then it was all riprap.
I remember what you speak of, yes. We will hire professionals.
So that, that's, yeah, and the planting, I think there, at one point, you did mention maybe grass, I think, but I think in the notes from the minutes, or it mentions that either you're going to use a wetland seed mix or turf or something. Is there?
We have no problem using wetland seed mix. I think that's completely appropriate.
Yeah.
As long as the grasses that we plant, or the plants that we plant, can resist the velocities coming out of the head walls, which should not be a problem, considering out there how flat they are.
Right.
So that should be completely appropriate. What we just don't want to have is the woody growth come back.
Right. So that would be great, because if you're just maintaining it every couple of years, then that's
Yep.
something that can take a hold. And,
Yeah, we would be absolutely fine with that. Yep. Okay.
Another question? The clean out areas you spoke about, they're probably as close to the road as you can,
Yes, they will be
corporate
as
drive
close
as you
to
can
the
get.
road as we can possibly get them.
Okay.
So that we can get in there and do what we want to, because we really don't want to go out
Right.
there either. We know you don't want us out there, and we don't want to be out there, but we have to fix what's broken.
And Harvey Lake will still be Harvey Lake and,
Harvey Lake is going to function exactly the way it is right this minute.
okay.
No
We're
change.
not doing any changes to Harvey Lake.
No changes with the level of water or anything.
Right
like
now,
that?
it's drained down to where it's supposed to be, and so literally what I just said is true. Harvey Lake, we think, was designed, that outfall structure, best that we can tell, was designed so that Harvey Lake would function as a detention pond before the water went into the Hodgson Brook. So, yes?
What's going to be the frequency of cleaning these things? Because obviously, they were left for long enough to have wetlands develop, et cetera, so.
So in the modern times that we live in, we have MS4 responsibilities. We have a whole stormwater unit at Public Works now. We never did that before. I don't think the Air Force ever did anything, quite frankly. I don't want to, I don't want to give them bad vibes, but, from everything we can tell, nothing was maintained. We didn't receive it in a maintained, in orderly place when we received the base back in 96, 95, Ted? Something like that?
Yep.
So, it's just one of those things that, but nowadays we have a whole maintenance division for stormwater that goes around and cleans catch basins and cleans the stormwater units and checks the sediment forebays and all that sort of thing. They have a whole list of things that
Was
they
it
need to do.
yearly or as needed, or?
It'll be as needed. It'll be as needed, and it might be needed a little bit more in the first couple of years because we're going to reconstruct Corporate Drive. So just because we're doing that, we're going to stir up some stuff. And then, hopefully, now, we don't use sand anymore when we salt the roads. So, so you don't have that amount of waste going into the drainage system. So hopefully things get better and they stay maintained.
Thank you. And I know you've been around for a long time, and I was just going to say, there have been, not in this section so much, although there's been cleanups and things like that when Hodgson Brook Watershed Association, is that what we were calling it? Or?
Restoration.
Restoration.
Group.
Yeah, when the group went out there, and then further down on Corporate Drive, there was buffer plantings all along, down by the wastewater treatment area.
We're
I
not
know
going
you're
to touch any of
down
those.
that way.
That's
but
all out of scope.
Just keep in mind that that's, if you're removing anything, it's sort of like, okay, anywhere that you can mitigate that at all, of keeping in, that to the minimum would be great. So, and then.
Yes, we intend to be as sensitive as possible when we're
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah, and then, you're not daylighting anything that's already a culvert or anything like that, but you're not also adding any new pipes, it wasn't quite clear,
No, we're not expanding Corporate Drive.
right?
You know, they are building sidewalks out there every sporadically, but other than that, they're not adding sealed surface out there. So we're maintaining what is existing. Anything that is a new building, and that gets dealt with separately.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that we're adding to or creating more volume that isn't already there being generated.
There is some new piping going in. Almost all of that is in the upper area.
So can you use a microphone?
There is some new piping going in to get the drainage system to areas where it will work. Most of that is in
Is
the
that
up,
the 3A, right?
yeah, in 3A. And,
So that's when we're repiping, and you can see it, we're piping it
Exact-
behind the stormwater pond. for
so
the
I think there's a
commercial
little,
building.
in area 2, there's maybe like a 30 feet or something in area 2, and I think
But
there's
we're
some.
not, we're not creating more,
No, there's no development. This is strictly a maintenance project. I mean, these were all engineered systems years ago that haven't been maintained. So there's no new development. It's just maintenance work for the drainage system, really. And Dave's correct. I mean, the road's coming apart. The water is, within, in spots, it's within 12 inches of the pavement when it rains. It's opening up. If you go down and the potholes are going to, develop, it's going to be a big mess,
it is
This
a big-
work
it is
doesn't.
already a big mess.
It's a big mess. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Samantha?
Yeah, I think this is a question for Peter. Do they need to apply for a new permit if, like, in a year they need to come back and do future maintenance dredging?
Not
Or
for
is
ma-
that covered under this?
I think the maintenance,
application?
the way they're going to set it up is they're going to be able to maintain through the catch basins. They're not going to have to dredge. That's the plan. If they wanted to do more dredging, I guess they would need to come back. But if they're just going to maintain the structures they're putting in or the pipes in terms of getting, vac trucks in to suck out the pipes and that kind of thing, they
Right.
shouldn't need another permit. It's only if they have to go in
Okay.
with equipment.
The,
into
the plunge pools that are going in at the end of the culvert pipes are intended to be maintained. And DES understands that, it's part of the permit. You know what I mean? But if we had to go way back in the woods again, we would need another permit. Because the roadside, you're allowed to do roadside swale maintenance, but these aren't roadside swales, they're discharge swales. So they don't consider them to be the same thing. Did I answer your question?
I guess the area where you're doing like 1.5 feet of dredging, in a lot of those areas,
Yeah.
if you have to come back and do that 1.5 feet, 2 feet, whatever again, that specifically
That would be a new
would or
permit.
would not require a new
That would be a
permit?
new permit.
New permit.
Was that yes, it would?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
But we're allowed to
Okay,
clean
that was
out,
my
but
question.
we're allowed
Thank
to clean
you.
out the outfalls.
They can clean out right at the outfall, but they would need a new permit if they needed to do the whole swale.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
And I just had one other question about invasive species. I know there's a lot of them out there. I guess, any kind of control of that or whatever, or you have that on your radar?
Well, we're obviously aware that there are invasive species out there, and anything that's invasive, we'll have an invasive species management part of the specification that, we have to deal with anything that we find, and, either cover it, leave it in a parking lot for a while, make sure it's dead, whatever the different mechanisms that are in the state regulations.
Okay.
Why is 3B, that area, so far away from the road and the buildings? I mean, it's even kind of far away from the parking lot. I'm kind of wondering why the parking lot doesn't get sort of pulled up and stuff put under, I mean, maybe that doesn't work, I don't know, from the engineering. But it just seems like it's way far away. Why is that?
It's just grades. It's literally, you need to get from A to B, and that's how far they had to go to drain from A to B.
Oh, okay, so it's like an elevation thing, or?
It's an elevation thing. They had to keep going
Okay.
until they found a spot that was low enough to drain.
Okay,
As I said in my opening part of what I was talking about, there are actually 2 outfalls right there. We're hoping that we can avoid the lower one, and we can do the one that's behind the building. But we need,
Oh,
we
okay.
need to be able to see the pipes.
Got it.
And see what's going on before we can actually guarantee that we can do that. So we're permitting the whole thing. We may not need to do the whole thing.
Okay. So is that why it's like 3A and 3B and some, and
That's
then
right,
4,
because it's going to
3 and
be
4 and
maybe
the other?
one, maybe both.
Okay.
We don't know,
Yeah. Okay.
but we're hoping one. I mean,
Okay.
it's less money, it's less work,
Yeah.
and 3A is more readily accessible. It's easier to get to. So, but we just don't know.
Okay.
It's that broken.
Any other questions from the commissioners? No, thank you. They're good?
They're good, yep.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the State Wetland Bureau application or a standard dredge and fill application for 231, 249, and 273 Corporate Drive.
Thank you. Second?
Can I add a stipulation?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Sure.
The use of the wetland seed mix in areas where replanting is needed.
Thank you.
We agree to that.
And I have a couple of other stipulations.
And Allison has a couple more, and we'll come back to you, Ted.
That clean out is done as frequently as needed to avoid the wetland development and then further dredging. And that there's an invasive species management plan.
Very well.
All right, Ted, is that
Okay,
good on your?
yep.
Thank you. So 3,
Stipulation.
Yeah, that okay?
That cleanout is done as frequently as needed to avoid future dredging?
Yes.
Yep.
and invasive species management.
Invasive species management plan, yep.
And
And wetland seed mix.
wetland species.
I'll second.
Seconded by Allison. Any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. For all those in favor, or, no, I'll do a roll call vote, sorry. I'll start over here. Ted?
Yes.
Henry?
Yeah.
Yes. Allison? Yes. Samantha?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The city
Appreciate it.
appreciates your time. I know this is not your typical application, but we do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice job, David, thank you.
Okay. So next item on the agenda is conservation lands discussion. I think, Peter,
I
you're
brought-
going to give us an update,
I
right?
well, I don't have a big update because I don't think we've done a lot, but I was hoping we could maybe sign up people again and maybe get some progress. We have, no, I don't have it for these guys. Me, you, Abigail.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jess and Sam, I don't have one for you, and I don't have something I can share a screen with, I apologize, but basically, what I'm showing, what I gave out to the commission is a map that shows the 5 parcels that we identified as priority parcels for conservation, that we were going to reach out and speak to the property owners. And what I'd like to do is at least get people, I think we should contact all the property owners, like, that's what we decided. But I didn't hear back from anybody to start that process, and I think we need to do that so we can get, if we want to get moving on it, figure out who the owner is and then contact them. I think on the Chase home, Allison and I were going to do it. Ted, I think you were going to take number 4. Is that right? Or was it 3 and 4?
3 and 4.
3 and 4. And you're going to do that on your own, or do you want a partner with that?
Well, that's involved with the land trust. So I did talk to Brian again on it.
Okay.
And we've stayed in touch on that particular one, and they're really the principals that are moving the discussion forward.
Okay.
And they are talking directly to the property owner, even though I know one of the family members pretty well.
So they're trying to keep us out of it right now?
Yes, they're trying to keep us out of it right now so it doesn't end up in the newspaper.
Yep, okay, all right. And then, Number two, I forgot who said they were going to do that. Was it Andrew? So that's the South Street property that goes into Portsmouth High School. I have a feeling it might have been Andrew because he had volunteered for at least one, maybe two. And Andrew, if you guys haven't heard, Andrew was nominated as appointed as a planning board member, alternate. So he's resigned from the commission. And
Oh, he resigned from the commission?
He resigned from the
Oh.
commission so he could serve on the planning board, yeah.
Well, you can do both, though. I mean, technically, you can do both.
Can you?
Oh,
I
yes, you
wasn't
can,
involved in
by
that.
state law and by local ordinance, you can serve on the HDC in the Conservation Commission, you can serve on the planning board and the Conservation Commission, so.
I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if that.
Yeah, it depends on the amount of time you have, too.
Right,
Yeah,
I was going to say, that
exactly.
might be the
Well, that
fact.
might be part of it too.
Yeah.
Trying to have a life.
Maybe he doesn't want to spend all his time in this room.
Yeah. But if anybody's interested in talking with that group, we can sign you up, or I can try and do that on my own.
That's the South Street property?
Yep.
Peter, you and I had talked about doing this
Okay.
South Street one. I can't see the map, so I don't know if that's the same
Yeah,
property.
it's the one
I-
that connects through to the high school property. Yep. So let's do that.
Okay.
And then on Beverly Hill Road, there's a property on the corner, number 5. And I don't know what we said about that one either, because I couldn't find my notes for some reason. I found some notes, but they were pretty cryptic on the minutes. I didn't have the details.
I can do that one if you want. Would you?
Okay. Okay, Barb.
When you guys are doing it, I couldn't hear, what is it that you're doing
That
with
was going
that?
to be
And-
my next question, yeah.
So the plan is really just to reach out to the property owners
Uh-huh.
and see if there's interest in some kind of, not even taking it very far in terms of conversation, but is there interest in protecting some of their property and conservation, whether it's acquisition or easement?
Yep,
And then set up a meeting and then maybe walk the property with them and talk to
yeah,
them about it.
okay.
I don't think we would want to start by talking any numbers, but I think we'd want to bring it back to the commission if there was interest and talk about where we are with that property and conservation fund money. And then maybe after we know who's interested, we have a better sense of how much money we have to spend and where we'd want to allocate it. And then prioritize the conversation after that.
Okay.
But I think we need to look at a level of interest from the property owner. Obviously, there's a couple. I think I might have an update soon on the Chase home, but I can't really share anything on that. But I'll talk with Allison about it, and we'll bring that back when we can. And same on the other ones. As soon as you know something, Ted, you can tell us. And, I think this is important that we keep it moving. And, that's where we left it last time. I think it just needs to get reactivated and moving on it. So I guess if I don't hear from you, I'm going to put it on my calendar to call people and get it moving, because, without a conversation, we won't.
I have a
we won't-
meeting the second Wednesday of every month, but that's about it at the moment.
Good
So-
for you. I like that. Okay.
So we just get in touch with you and then follow up with phone calls?
Yeah,
people,
we'll
or
follow
see
up, we'll figure out
knows
who the contacts are, and then
there's
follow up together with a phone call probably, or a visit, depending on the place. And then, in terms of the CIP, the commission had wanted $1 million to go into the CIP this year, and $1 million every year thereafter.
Yeah.
The city sits down to make the recommendation with the city manager and to the council, the planning board, and then the council. And looking at the request to the commission, the finance department had a lot of concerns about $1 million right up front, especially because we don't have a project identified. So we have about $1 million in our conservation fund, and we don't have a project right now to need another $1 million. The concern is that the debt service, the impact that would have on the debt service would be pretty large. And so it made sense to me and to make that recommendation to the planning board and the council that we hold off this year and cut the number down to 500,000, but try to do it every year so we have a bigger pool of money going forward, when we have projects. But right now, not having anything to spend it on, it was a tough ask for the CIP. So I think it's a positive thing to have that $500,000 next year going forward. And I think the more we can do to support that and show that we have an active program and identify these properties and say, these people are interested in selling, and there might be other people, as we move forward in this, that are interested, we might want to come out with a revisit this and add more properties, but this was our starting point, and I think if we can identify a property, we're going to be able to promote stuff further into the budget process that way.
This was something that was recommended by both Hampton and, I think it was Hampton and Dover had that experience too, when they tried to put something forward without having a project or a plan in place. They were,
Yeah, the finance department, really had a lot of issues with it in terms of how we ask for money and how we program money. It was not it's hard to justify something if you don't have a specific project to outlay it on. I understand we need to have money to do projects, but there is money in the conservation fund now, so.
Well, I think the city should be much more aggressive, and we should be mirroring after like the York Land Trust. When properties come available for sale and they're neighboring property that they already have in conservation, they buy it. They don't wait. And we're talking now about not having funds available for 18 months.
We have funds available now.
Yes, I know the 800,000, but the median price
it's
for a
over a
house
million,
in town
yeah.
is not much, and it's pretty high. Land's very expensive, and there are so many examples of I think the city should be much more aggressive. For instance, we have a building going up on what was the Bank of America parking lot in town. What about the other bank parking lots? I think we should be reaching out to try to get a right of first refusal or something of that nature if any of those properties come up. So if not, you're going to end up with, 5- and 6-story buildings on everything that is potential green space downtown, not just in the outlying areas. So I think the city, there's no more land left.
So you're
Can't
saying
wait,
In developed areas, you want to buy property as well?
What's that?
Are you talking about in developed areas?
I think, yes.
Urban areas?
I think it should be considered, just like it is considered by other conservation commissions in other places, like in South Portland, as an example. And in terms of the financing, if you don't have to finance it right away, you can get a bond authorization for it, have that sitting there, and you don't have to use the bond authorization. You don't have to financially commit. But then if you do decide that there is a piece of property the city wants to buy, any one of these or others, then you've got the resources available to do it rapidly. In this environment, property sells like that. It disappears quickly. And I think the city should be poised to obtain additional property, and I think they've missed opportunities where we could have had affordable housing, for instance, and other places that the city had actually purchased the land.
Those sound like policy decisions that are, affordable housing is a little different than conservation acquisition. We're talking about land for conservation and open space, not for development, control, and affordable housing properties. That's a different conversation, I think, a different part of the CIP or the city budget.
Well, I would have, as an individual, as a citizen, I would have made a proposal on my own for the $1 million to start the discussion in that process to try to raise awareness about the need to purchase more property. There's nothing left. And I think I was talking to Peter Rice, and he couldn't agree with me more. We were talking about the possibilities, because he said there's nothing left. So you don't have to actually spend the cash and buy it if you have the bond authorization. It gives you the authority and flexibility to do it. And I would have argued we don't need, it was put in there. I looked at the CIP. Actually, I looked at the CIP thinking the council meeting is coming up in January, and I'll go and speak to the council in support of our $1 million request. And that's what I was planning on doing when I looked at the CIP. I said, it's not in here. And then what I did see was in there was put in as an actual appropriation for 24. And from a strategy standpoint, that's the worst place to set your money up, because everybody wants to balance the budget and keep the tax rate down. If it's just a bond authorization for something that you're going to be paying in the future, there's a much greater strategic chance of trying to get it through. So I would have appreciated feedback so I could talk about it, and and try to raise awareness about it, because now it's money that we'll never see, you know. When $500,000 to put in a conservation fund, it's not going to happen in 2024. So I would have at least preferred to be shown as a source of funding as bonding, not cash.
So moving forward, so we just lost Samantha. She had her hand up, but,
I'm still here.
oh, you are. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Samantha.
sorry. I just wanted to say I agree with Ted in that you know, properties come up and are taken off the market so quickly in this particular market that I think the money is one thing, obviously having as much money as we can, but also I don't know if there's other steps we can take so that we are as prepared as we can be when something does come up, that we can jump for it as quickly as possible. And I don't know what those steps are. I think Ted has a good idea with the bonds and things like that. I don't know anything about that, but you know, just trying to figure out what those steps are so we can be like, you know, pre-approved, if you will, to go for certain properties.
And I'd recommend, if you have a specific approach to go forward, you know, next year when we do this, and if it's not put money in the capital plan, then what is it and how do we do it? And we'll work with that. But that was the approach that I thought we were requesting. And it had a big impact on the debt service, and it seemed like it made sense to move it, and it didn't make sense to go forward with $1 million request when there was no project. So that's where it ended up.
Okay. So you want to outline the steps that we need to take, or, I mean,
Well, you know, there's a schedule. It starts in October, you know, and if I had known in October that it wasn't there, I would have gone to the planning board and made the same case to the planning board. We need the money, we need it available right away. I will go to the city council and say we had requested $1 million, and I'll go to the public hearing for the capital improvement plan and talk about it, because there are mechanisms that can give you the authority to spend the funds on short order, and that's really having a bonding authorization. And it doesn't require you to go borrow the money, even though you have the authorization. So I think
That's something the city council can do at any time?
they could grant authorization like that at some point in time, yeah. But usually, you know, things are so much in the cycle, you know, when they're doing it, oh, we did CIP, we'll worry
Well,
about it
I think
next
part of
year.
this is a learning curve. There's never been this conservation authorization. We have a conservation fund, and the people have looked at that as
Yeah.
the mechanism to replace conservation values. There hasn't been a proactive method, so this is a little bit of a learning curve, I guess, but that's what happened for this year in terms of where we are now. And maybe you can get that to change, but at least going forward, let's have if you think there could be a better plan, let's work on that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if we on the requesting $1 million, and then we were getting pushback, so we reduced that. I totally understand that. But if we have some communication, maybe that idea could come up. That's the first I heard it. Like Samantha said, I don't know what a bond authorization is, but it sounds like a good way to get set up to act quickly. So we can look into some of those.
Well, I know that's how a lot of the small communities do it.
Yeah.
They vote to have a bond authorization.
Yeah.
And they spend it when they have a project.
Yeah.
so keep it on the radar for sure, and maybe just keep it on the agenda on a regular basis, like an
Well, so if
update.
we hear of a property that's coming up for sale and it looks like it would be a good conservation value, I think that then we could approach the city council, couldn't we, at that time?
It does, but then you're talking a 3-reading process with the city council. So, you know, then you're talking a month and a half just to get to the 3rd reading of the process of going through the city council. So, and that's if everybody said this is a great thing, you know.
And that we're also faced with the challenge of, you know, we're trying to buy it for conservation. Developers want to buy it to develop it. They have a lot more money on the table oftentimes than we'll be able to justify or come up with.
Well, they're running circles around us, you can bet. They're using, GIS, and they're hiring analysts, and they're hiring people to scour the geography of the city of Portsmouth, probably far more than we are collectively,
Okay. So thanks, Ted. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, well, let's keep moving.
So that,
Identify some of these.
Go ahead.
no, I thought we had left that property number 5 open, but that was Barbara, who, and
Barbara
Heather,
says, yeah.
we're gonna pursue that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's going to follow up with you.
Yep.
And if they don't follow up with you, you'll follow
I'm
up
gonna
with them.
follow up. I'm going to put it on my calendar, yep.
Put it on your calendar. I will try to remind you too if maybe when we follow up.
Well, I just want to quickly point out on this little map here, that right around this area here, they're actually, the land trust is trying to raise funds to purchase a piece of property over here, sort of right near not right across from the Science Center almost, and they've got a very active program now to raise about $800,000 to add to it. And there's quite a bit of property in this general area that is under conservation.
In the rye.
Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't really tie into any of our proposals or
Well,
possibilities.
number 3 might be pretty close,
Yeah,
you know.
number 3 has-
Number 3 is pretty close.
That's the rye line, so.
Yeah, that goes into rye quite a bit, and number 4 goes into rye too.
Good information. Any more discussion or questions on that?
No.
Nope. So, and were there other updates at all, Peter?
Beverly was here, but she left. I didn't introduce her at the beginning. I guess I should have. I didn't know if she was going to stay for the whole meeting or not, but the new planning director, Beverly Mesa Zent, has started, and she's getting acclimated, and I think she'll be a great addition. She comes from Redwood, Washington, where she was a planner for 6 years. She actually went to UNH. She worked in Dover as an intern early on in her career. She also worked in Texas and in Washington State and a couple different places. Has a really good background. Will be really helpful in terms of zoning rewrites and long-range planning, and just getting her feet wet now, so she seems like a great addition.
What's her name? Beverly?
Beverly Mesa, M-E-S-A, Zent, Z-E-N-D-T. That's 2 words for her last name, but
Oh, okay.
no hyphen.
No hyphen. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Kind of under other business,
Her other business.
new person. And the other things, I was just going to say the other things, Peter, and not to put you on the spot, that we'd worked on was for the education program and stuff like that, and that's pretty much,
I got to check back in with Public Works, but they were going to get going on that, so see where they are.
so it's gone to Public
follow
Works
up.
for that person to,
Well, for that, yeah.
because were there people on the commission that were interested in participating in that?
Yeah, I actually exchanged an email with Brian just before the holidays, and I said, I'm away, I'll be coming back, And, I had an eventful trip to South Carolina for a month to see my mother-in-law's, who's like 96. She ended up with COVID. She gave me COVID. I spent the entire time, it's like beautiful weather outside, hiding out inside. It was just amazing.
No fun. Did you hear back from him?
Yeah, I haven't heard back since. I just came back this past Monday, so I'll follow up with them, but
Okay.
Okay. Follow up with him on that. Okay.
we're tentatively going to try to meet, sometime in January and talk about what they're doing.
Great.
I can send an email out if anybody's interested, but we do set something up.
Yeah, if you have time, be great.
I have a question, just a philosophical question about the Conservation Commission. I just saw another piece, and I saw this about a year ago, about how schools are doing a lot of, and Maine's doing a lot, they're doing a lot of outdoor learning. They've got outdoor classrooms and things like that. And I was wondering, and then with the sound wall being, nixed by, I guess, the state at New Franklin, that barrier, I was just kind of wondering, is there any direction that Portsmouth is taking for, the high school, the middle school, and the elementary schools to kind of, create these areas where outdoor learning can actually happen instead of just...
They had outdoor classrooms at the high school.
Did they? Oh, good.
There is
Cool.
an outdoor classroom at the high school over in the Jones Ave land, and also the Dondero School has a pretty extensive outdoor learning program that they do.
And do they have like wildlife area and stuff like that, or is it just sort of?
They have a path that goes out into the woods, and they have a spot in the woods, and they put in a new playground that's more natural type of playground than your typical.
Like rocks and
Monkey
piles
bars.
of dirt.
Yeah, at New Frank, where?
That's at Dondero.
Dondero, okay, because New Franklin had a
New Franklin
newer
has
one. I
a
mean,
nature trail they put in.
better than it used to be, but,
A nature trail that goes out in the woods and.
yeah,
and,
okay,
I don't know what they're doing specifically for outdoor education, but I
okay.
know there's a few different efforts, but
So that's sort of an ongoing thing that's, good, cool, all right.
Doesn't- Sorry to interrupt, but doesn't the middle school now have an outdoor classroom too, I think?
I don't know. I don't know about
And I
that
know
one.
Little Harbor has the school garden too.
Yeah.
That's part of
Yeah.
their education stuff. But I think I saw something about the middle school might now have an outdoor classroom space as well.
Great.
Okay, thanks, I didn't mean to, sorry, maybe this is something I should have just asked you guys on the side instead of having it part of the meeting, but.
No, because we
okay.
got it all from everybody. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk more about it too at some point with you if you want.
Yeah, just- yeah.
So, great. So that's conservation lands discussion, and we're into other business. Any other business? No? No? Okay. I know you guys are not, any other business over there?
I don't see any hands up or people looking like they want to
See that?
add to that.
Do what?
What?
Oh,
She was just asking about were people
Over there?
on the
On
screen,
the screen?
on the screen, oh, okay.
the mat there, Justin.
So I just wanted to mention that I think that we need to consider sustainability, and I don't know what direction it's going to take regarding the city. I know that there was going to be a request for money for an environmental or a sustainability coordinator full-time for the city. And with McEachern talking about looking at the zoning ordinances and things like that, that I think there's an opportunity for maybe under conservation that we include some things that have to do with sustainability, which is not something that we've really looked at before.
Excellent.
So is there any actions we should take at this point, Allison, or you just sort of?
Well, I'm sort of feeling it out. We're talking about having a summit, a sustainability summit.
Oh, I saw that, Allison. I was gonna get back to Valentina or someone on that group because I saw that email. I didn't look at all the minutes, but I noticed that they were calling it a climate summit, and there is a climate summit. So you might want to think about a different name.
Okay.
Because the CAW, Coastal Adaptation Work Group, does a climate summit every year, and there might be some confusion
Okay,
if you pick the same name.
okay.
Maybe if you add Portsmouth to it or change
Right.
Portsmouth something different, or that might help, but you just don't want to have that kind of
Right.
confusion.
Yeah, right.
It's a great effort, though, and maybe there might be some people that want to speak at that climate summit. It might be, there's probably an opportunity to do that. I can find the dates. I'll get back to Valentina, and she'll probably
Okay,
send it out
great, thank you.
with more information.
Can I ask a question on those lines? I was going to email you, Peter, about this, but about the sustainability committee that we have here in town, and if there's an opportunity maybe that there should be communication between us and them to kind of understand what they're doing. And
Yeah, sure. I'm the staff. for
I'm
that committee.
interested in that committee, to be frank. So I was just curious to know what their role is and if it's appropriate maybe that we support them in some way, or again, like I said, if there's more communication so we know what they're doing and they can kind of know what we're doing, or I don't know what would be the right avenue.
Well, I am also a participant. I'm not on the original committee that was developed for for sustainability here in the city, but since I retired, I decided to get more involved, and so I am participating with members of the original group on this. In fact, we have a meeting every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I mean, like, if you'd like to participate, I'd be glad to forward the information to you, or if anybody would like to participate. We're always looking for people that are interested.
I'm hoping to come. 7 o'clock is just a hard hour with a 2 and a 3-year-old, but
Yeah, especially after
I'm
you.
hoping that I can get my husband home so I can be present this evening. And I spoke with Bert the other day. He came into the store and he and I had a nice conversation as well. So I would like to try to keep those channels open and, continue to progress whatever efforts there are. And if we can support them some way as the commission or be more aware of what their efforts are, I just think that benefits everybody.
Right, yeah, and it's interesting because there have been several of the members of the Sustainability Committee that have talked about your shop, so.
That's great.
Broke away at the wrong time.
I appreciate that. That's very generous of them.
So it used to be that you really, I don't know who it was the mayor or somebody did make it really difficult for you to be on 2 different committees at the same time. I remember when Mary Ann was here, but, so maybe there's opportunity for you guys to,
Yeah,
obviously.
I don't know, there were 3 things I was participating in the fall, so, and I'm assuming that I might get reappointed to the Community Power again, but we'll see.
So you'll communicate a little bit with Jeff?
Yeah,
then?
absolutely. If anybody wants to, I gladly send you the link for the Zoom meeting that we have on Wednesday evenings, 7 o'clock. Yes, it is a difficult time, 7 to 8:30, makes it a long evening, but, anybody's welcome to participate, and I will definitely communicate if you're interested.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, any other? No? I just had one thing. We originally were going to schedule a special meeting between the previous 2 meetings, but does it look like we don't have to now? Did everybody go that way?
Yeah,
with
I think so.
Yeah, everybody's comfortable with not having a special meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. So that said,
Make a motion that we adjourn?
thank you. Seconded? Second from Abby. All those in favor? I think we don't have to do
Yes.
roll call.
Yes.
All right, thanks, you guys. Thanks for doing this. Thanks, everybody, for the support. I really have enjoyed being the chair of the commission, and hopefully, please let me know any changes or whatever you need to make, but hopefully the next year goes well.
Okay.
Thank you.